Welcome back, you two pipe smokers. Muttnchop Piper here. Well, today's video is entitled How My Big Mouth Got Me in Trouble Again. Now, this tale takes place during my early years in the Marine Corps. I was a Marine from 1981 to 2001. This tale takes place in 1985. 1983, I had just gotten back from my first deployment overseas to Beirut, and at the time, in 1985, at that time, we had been deployed to Yuma, Arizona for desert training. So one day we went into work, and I'm sitting waiting for an assignment, and the desk sergeant, Sergeant Sanchez, calls me up here and says, "Hey, come here. There's a bare spot on the back of an aircraft that needs to be painted. You need to paint it. So grab some rags and some paint and go paint it." I said, "Okay." Now, at this time I was a corporal, and I'd been a corporal for about a year. So I grabbed the paint and the rags and I went out. And when I got out there was somebody with a can of paint spraying that bare spot. I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Well, Sergeant Sanchez sent me out here to spray this bare spot." I said, "Well, he sent me out here to do the same thing." And I said, "You know what? I could run that desk better than him with my eyes closed." There it was. There's my mistake. So I went inside and, never thought of nothing about it. Just told Sergeant Sanchez, "Well, you sent someone else out there." "Oh, yeah, that's right. I'll just go sit down and just wait." So we got done with our deployment, came back to North Carolina, and I went on what's called leave, but for you everyday people, it's called vacation, for a week. I went home, and then I came back. When I came back, I walked into the shop, and Sergeant Sanchez said, "Gunny wants to see you." Now, gunnery sergeant is the non-commissioned officer in charge of a big shop like that. He's sort of the supervisor or the boss. So Sanchez says, "Gunny wants to see you." I said, "You know what it's about?" And he goes, "Nope. He just told me as soon as you get in, he wants to see you." So now I'm scared to death. I'm like, okay, what did I do? Did I do something in Yuma? Did I screw something up in Yuma? I said, "I don't know." So went over next door to where his office was, and I said, "Gunny, you need to see me?" He goes, "Have a seat." I said, "Okay." He goes, "So, I hear that you can run the desk better than Sergeant Sanchez with your eyes closed." I said, "Gunny," I said that because I was frustrated that he sent me out there to do a job that someone else has already done, and that's not the first time." He goes, No, I understand. That's why, as of today, you're the desk sergeant." I said, "Me?" I said, "But I'm only a corporal." He goes, "Doesn't matter." He goes, "I just want to see how good a job you can do." And it was, he was setting me up to fail automatically. I said, "Okay." I said, "If we do this, what if I get in there and I'm the desk sergeant, and me being a corporal, and I tell a sergeant, 'Hey, I need you to go do this job,' and he says, 'Look, Corporal, I'm a sergeant. You don't tell me what to do.'" He goes, "No, don't worry about that. I'll take care of it." So in the mornings we have a meeting, and in the evenings we have a meeting. So in the evening he got in there and he said, "All right, as of today, Corporal Sheets is in charge of the desk. He's the desk sergeant. Now, I don't care what rank you are except for mine. If he tells you to do something, you do it. It would be as if I told you to do it. If he comes to me and tells me that he's having problems with you, then you're going to have a problem with me." So everybody understood. I said, "Okay." So I also asked him, I said, "Do I have any restrictions?" He said, "Nope." He says, "You run the desk the way you want to, but you got a month." Okay. So when I took over, we were at 60% aircraft availability, which was pretty bad. And there was a board that had these things, they're work orders basically. They're green vids maps, they're called. But it was just full. So I positioned my desk, and what's called the tool assistance desk at one end of the shop, and then a small area so that me and the tool attendant could go back and forth. I told everybody, nobody is allowed behind the desk with me and the tool attendant for that day. Don't let me catch you back behind the desk. Because what would happen is a lot of people would come back and they start looking through VisMass saying, oh, I can do this, I can do this. No, I needed total control of that. So, and the tool attendant, what he does is when you're given a job and it requires tools, you go to tool room, check out the tools that are checked there. You bring it back to the shop, open it up, and the tool attendant verifies that all the tools are there. And then you sign the toolbox out in a book that we had. And then when you're done with the tools, you come back to the tool attendant. He makes sure all the tools are there, and then it's checked again when it's put back in the tool room. You do that because the last thing you want is a tool rolling around in an aircraft while it's flying. And the aircraft that I worked on in the Marine Corps was an H-1 model, which is the Huey and the Cobra. So I got everything started. I started working as the desk sergeant, and I started. First thing I had to do is I had to figure out where my strengths, where the people that were working for us, where their strengths and their weaknesses lie. You may have Corporal Johnson, who's great at testing, but he's not so good at heavy maintenance. You may have, Lance Corporal Peters, who loves heavy maintenance, and he's just really not a very good tester. So in about a week, I figured out who was who. And so I could start assigning jobs to people that I knew could do that job quickly and efficiently. After that, about 2 weeks in, I started heading to maintenance control. Maintenance control controls all the shops. The gunny just controls our shop, and I was in charge of the desk to hand out the work orders of our shop. So I'm headed to maintenance control. Well, I meet Gunny halfway. Gunny says, hey, Corporal Sheets, what's going on with Aircraft 5? And I said, I have to go back and get my notes. They're on a pad in the shop. He goes, well, okay, what's going on with 12? Again, I got to go. He goes, no. He goes, whenever I ask you, if I walk across the street, walk across to the shop, or I see you in maintenance control, or I meet you like this, you better know off the top of your head what's going on with my aircraft. I said, okay. He goes, you got 2 weeks left. So then I trained my mind, and I didn't know I had this ability, but apparently I do. I trained my mind to sort of take a snapshot of my pad to let me know what was going on. So, the weeks went by and VisMass were coming off the board, and we were getting things done. And about a couple of days before the month was up, Gunny walks over and says, Corporal, let's go. So we're walking across toward maintenance control. He goes, what's going on with 7? I said, 7's daily been turned around. It's online, ready for test. Corporal Johnson is going to be tested. Okay. What's going on with 15? 15 is in the barn, which is our hangar. In the barn, main rotor hub is being taken off and replaced. I got Mulcahy and Peters on that job. Okay. All right. And the way he was looking was he was shocked. He didn't think that I could tell him off the top of my head what was going on. Well, at the end of the month, he comes in and he looks at the board, and there's about 4 VisMass on the board where there were about 30 before. We'd gone from a 60% aircraft availability to a 92% availability. So he called me back in his office and says, well, he goes, to be honest, I was setting you up to fail. But clearly, you were born to do this job because you have turned the shop around, and So we're going to keep it the way it is for now. Well, I ended up in that job until 1988 when I went on my second deployment to overseas. And I ended up getting what's called a Navy Achievement Medal. I ended up getting 4 of those throughout my career, so that was the first one. Now, why am I telling you this? I'm not telling you this to say, hey, look how great I am. No. What I'm telling you this for is that if you are challenged, if someone challenges you at your work or wherever and says, okay, think you can do a better job here, don't get apprehensive or scared of it. Take ownership of it. Say, okay, I will. And take ownership of it and do whatever it takes within reason to do the best you can at that job or at that task. One of my favorite sayings, which I have made up myself, is impress yourself with what you can accomplish, and others will be impressed along with you. So if you impress yourself at what you can do with a project or with a challenge from work, others around you will be impressed along with you, because they'll be like, wow, he really took ownership of that and did a good job. So that's the kind of the moral of the story. Well, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something. Until my next video, I want to wish you and your family happy piping.